How's it going, everyone? I am Jinsula, and welcome to another Pokemon Go video. Okay, so in case you weren't aware, we are going to be able to remove frustration off of our Shadow Pokemon with Charge TMs and Elite Charge TMs during the next in-game event. This video is going to list the specific Shadow Pokemon that should be prioritized when removing frustration. So with that said, let's roll the intro and get right into it. Okay, let's talk about Shadow Pokemon. So, in case you weren't aware, these Pokemon variants are some of the most powerful Pokemon that you can use. Shadow Pokemon deal an insanely high amount of damage at the expense of a little defense. This is because each of their attacks have what is called a Shadow bonus, which boosts the damage of that attack by 20%. The only caveat is that every Shadow Pokemon that you get aside from Apex Shadow Pokemon will have the move Frustration, which is a terrible neutral damage attack that blocks you from getting an actual usable move. However, every now and then through various Team Go Rocket themed in-game events, Niantic allows players to remove frustration with the use of Charge TMs and Elite Charge TMs. This leads me to the topic of this video. During the second half of the Crackling Voltage event next week, we're going to have the ability to remove frustration off of our Shadow Pokemon. This is going to be for a limited time, and it will be a while before Niantic will allow us to do this again. You will want to make sure you remove frustration off of as many Shadow Pokemon as possible during this time. Otherwise, you will have to wait a long time before you will be able to use any of them. The time period where you will be able to remove frustration will be from February 1st at 12 AM local time until February 5th, 11:59 PM local time. This is when the Team Go Rocket Takeover event is going to take place. Thus, if you want any in-game indicator that you can remove frustration, look for the mass amount of grunt battles. Alright, with that said, let's go over which Shadow Pokemon you should focus on first. Starting off with PvP Pokemon. I think probably the most important Pokemon you will want to remove frustration off of is going to be Swampert. This Shadow Pokemon is phenomenal for the Go Battle League, and it slots in really well with a lot of different teams. If you want yourself a really good PvP Pokemon, then get frustration off of all of your Swamperts. You will then likely need to use an Elite Charge TM in order to get Hydro Cannon. Next up, you should get frustration off of some of the new Shadow Pokemon that will be introduced with this upcoming Team Go Rocket Takeover event. Specifically, you should go for Shadow Galvantula and Shadow Alolan Ninetales as soon as possible after the event starts, and remove frustration from them. Shadow Galvantula especially, because that particular Pokemon is set to make a huge impact on the Great League meta. Another PvP Shadow Pokemon that often gets used is Dragonite. If you can remove frustration off of this Pokemon and get it ready for the Ultra League or even the Master League, that will get you really far ahead. Going in line with the current Great League meta, you should also make sure any Shadow Gliscor in your collection has frustration removed. This particular Pokemon can be a game changer in the Great League, simply because it has a lot of type coverage as well as access to the moves Wing Attack and Earthquake. That's going to give it an edge against some of the toughest Go Battle League Pokemon, like Registeel, Galarian Stunfisk, and Trevenant. Finally, if you have any Shadow Walrein that are ready for either the Great League or Ultra League, get frustration off of them as well. Even though Icicle Spear got nerfed, Shadow Walrein is still pretty relevant in the various leagues of the Go Battle League. Thus, if you have any from the previous year, now is a good opportunity for you to get it battle ready. So yeah, these were the PvP-centric Shadow Pokemon that you should remove frustration off of. There are plenty of other PvP Pokemon that you could use, but these 6 Shadow Pokemon will give you an immediate impact considering how strong they are in their respective leagues. But next, let's move on to the Shadow Pokemon that are phenomenal for raids and other PvE content. There's going to be quite a lot listed here, so make sure you check your collection to see if you are sitting on any of these Shadow Pokemon. The first one I'm going to mention is probably the most important one, and it is Shadow Mewtwo. This Shadow Pokemon needs no explanation. It is by far the best Shadow Pokemon in terms of raid damage currently in the game. If you picked up one of these last year and forgot to remove frustration off of it, then be sure to make it your #1 priority this time around. Getting frustration removed from any Mewtwo and using it in raids, Team Go Rocket battles, and gym battles is absolutely essential. You don't even have to worry about IVs or ideal movesets. Just get frustration off of it as soon as possible so that you can use it right away. Another really good Shadow Pokemon that you should remove frustration off of is going to be Shadow Mamoswine. This is by far the best Ice-type Pokemon in the game, and considering plenty of legendary raid bosses are weak against ice, you should prioritize having a bunch of these ready for raids, remove frustration, and give it powder snow and avalanche. You should also get frustration off of Shadow Machamp. This Shadow Pokemon was recently obtainable through battling Cliff. Even though it ranks just slightly lower than Terrakion with Double Kick and Sacred Sword, it is much easier to max out to level 50, and it will hold its own in a variety of different circumstances. It also lacks that rock typing, which will give it an advantage against most Pokemon that Terrakion can't deal with. Another Shadow Pokemon you should prioritize is Shadow Weavile. This Shadow Pokemon hasn't been obtainable for a while, but plenty of players have it. If you're one of them, then make sure all of your Shadow Weaviles don't have frustration. It has incredibly high DPS, and it has a very good type combination. Next up, you should remove frustration off of Shadow Raikou. This is a legendary Shadow Pokemon that a lot of players were probably holding on to. I do think it is worth the resources to get ready for raids, as it is a high damage electric type Pokemon with Shadow Ball in its move pool. This not only gives it plenty of type coverage, but a ton of neutral damage potential as well. Another legendary Shadow Pokemon that you should prioritize is Shadow Moltres. This is an insanely good fire type Pokemon, but also top tier when it comes to flying types. Because of that duo typing, getting a Shadow version of this Pokemon maxed out will open up a lot more for you. Plenty of content gets trivialized with this particular Shadow Pokemon, so I highly suggest you get frustration removed off of it as soon as you can. Finally, you need to remove frustration off of any Shadow Salamence that you have in your collection. This particular Shadow Pokemon is the best Dragon type in the game that is not a Mega Evolution. You will for sure want to have a bunch of them for Dragon type raid battles. If you can coordinate with your friends and boost up Shadow Salamence with a Mega Salamence, well, that's going to be pretty sick. So yeah, these were all of the Shadow Pokemon that you should prioritize when it comes to removing frustration. Honestly, if you have enough charge TMs, you should just do a search for Shadow Pokemon and just remove frustration off of anything that is in your collection. Shadow Pokemon are so powerful regardless of what it is. Thus, having a bunch of them in your collection without frustration could take you really far. Don't miss this opportunity, because like I said, there may not be another opportunity to remove frustration with charge TMs for a long while now. Just to reiterate, the next Team Go Rocket Takeover event that will allow you to do this will be from February 1st to February 5th. Make sure you mark your calendars and get your Shadow Pokemon ready. Anyways, that's going to be it for this video. Now, since there are hundreds of different Shadow Pokemon currently in the game, there will be a few that I missed. If there is one particular Shadow Pokemon you feel should be prioritized when it comes to removing frustration, definitely mention it down below in the comments and let's have a great discussion. And if you ended up enjoying this video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if it's your first time here, and don't forget that little bell so you can stay up to date on whenever I upload videos. And I want to give a quick shout out to my patrons on Patreon. You make this channel content possible. If you want to support my channel in any way, big or small, then be sure to check out the links in the description below. For all my patrons, they get a permanent spot on my in-game friends list. So if you want to interact with me in some way, like with remote raids, then do consider becoming a patron on my Patreon. But yeah, that's going to be it. I'm Count Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch you all later.